Hey guys, welcome to the very first in a new tutorial series here at Digital Wasteland. And the series is going to be on familiarizing yourself with the Linux Mint desktop. Most of you, pretty much everyone today, is coming from the good old-fashioned point and click environment where you take your mouse and you point it at what it is you want to open, and depending on how you have your system set up, you double click and your program opens or your document opens, etc., etc. Now, one of the things that has scared people away from Linux for a very long time is the lie, and it's a lie, that you have to be able to use the command line to use Linux. And that is just simply not true today. It was once true. But you know, it was once true for Microsoft products too. Before Windows, you were using a DOS prompt. Right? Now, I prefer the prompt. I am a big fan of the prompt. And I will be doing a tutorial on using the terminal. Right? But that will be separate from this here. Now, the reason I'm doing this, and this is Linux Mint specific, is because I am recommending to anybody who is going to upgrade to Linux and get rid of the virus that's currently on their computer, Windows, to use Linux Mint, because the environment is so much like Windows as far as the look goes that it helps to take away the intimidation factor. I mean, let's face it, looking at this, it does not look unfamiliar to a Windows 10 user or a Windows 8 user or even somebody using XP. This style has been around since Windows 95, really. So we're just going to take a very quick look at it today to get you familiarized with it. Now, everything, I've got icons on the desktop here. Now, I'm not a big fan of having icons on my desktop, but I do in this particular case, and that's the reason I do it is because there's information that I get from these that I use for other purposes, because quite often for the type of thing that I'm doing, I want to have the exact command that is being issued to open the application, and this is the easiest way for me to get it, such as screen cloud here, looking at properties, right click, looking at properties. Well, here's my command right here, right? And you can see it's fairly involved. Now that's the same in Windows as well. It's very similar in that particular manner, but the file structure is different in Linux than it is in Windows. Right? And of course, down here in the bottom left, we have the menu button or the start button in Windows. However, note there is no Cortana search function here. Right? When you click here, your search function is right up here. And this search function is marvelous. Right? One of the things I always hated about the Windows Start menu was after the computer had been running, well, it takes forever for Windows to start up, first off. Then after it stabilizes, after startup, you never know what you're going to get when you go and you click down here. How long is it going to take till it comes up? But you can see the responsiveness to the menu button here on Linux. Now, as an example, if I'm looking for a program, let's suppose one of the ones that was my favorite is default applications, right? So I type in DEF and I'm automatically there. If you look, preferred applications, it's responding to default. That's how well written this is, right? And that is really cool. Anything below that, this is last used type of thing. You can clear that out anytime you want. And unlike just putting everything simply in alphabetical order, which under all applications is put in alphabetical order, right? It's put in by categories. You have accessories, graphics. Makes sense? Internet programs, Office, other. These are typically things, these are things in this particular case that I have installed via the command line that don't have, they're not in the repositories, right? Now there's programming stuff here. I'm going to get, at some point in time I'll take that off. Sound and video, universal access, onboard is a BitTorrent client, administrative tools, all the different preferences you can have, right? Very similar to the idea of Windows Control Panel, except it's far better broken down. Places, These, of course, are your typical directories. Now, in Linux, they're directories, and Windows are folders. They were always directories to me because in DOS they were directories, and I was a DOS guy. Right? You can see the basics right there. And then your recent files area. Right? All very handy. Excuse me, sorry. I couldn't get to the pause quick enough on that. Okay, so everything is very nicely structured. And Linux Mint comes with a really good variety of bundled software that you're probably going to find to be useful. If you're not finding them to be useful, you uninstall them and they're gone. It's not installation in Linux is nothing like it is in Windows. Right? And in Windows, of course, you have programs that you can't uninstall because Windows sponsors them and that's in their stupid store. Like try to get rid of that Xbox thing at the bottom. It comes back with every Windows update. Right? You're not going to have to deal with that when you're dealing with Linux. So as an example, if we go down here, coming with it, if we go to the internet, coming on Linux is Firefox, right, which is typical. Right? I don't think there's anything else here that came with this. HexChat is part of it, and that's about it. Right now, transmission is also part of it. I forgot what transmission is. Oh, it's a telnet type client, I believe. Right, everything else I put on myself out of necessity. Okay. So, how do you deal with installing applications? Right. Well, first off, and the Windows super key, as it's called, the one that looks like the window, and this does pop up the menu. Right. If I type in the word software here, I will see the software manager, which I will pop up. And it takes just a second. These particular programs are not super fast to come up because they have to read quite a bit of files in the background as they are coming up. So this type of thing is a little bit slower. But it will be here in a second. I can even watch it coming up. There we go. Now here you have everything that you could possibly ever want to install. Something like 60,000 programs in this repository. All broken down into types. Right? Science and education. Right? Break it down, give you examples there. Maths, I mean, anything you can imagine along with ratings as well. And it will tell you if it's already installed also. Search function is excellent. Okay. Now Blender, which is being featured here on this particular thing, is one of the tools that replaces, I think it's an Illustrator in Adobe. I don't know. I'm not a graphics design person, but it does replace one of the Adobe products. Now this one right here, Wine is designed for people who absolutely have to run a Windows application. Right? It takes care of that. But you've got your choice. You can get WhatsApp Messenger. Anything you want is here, and it is simple enough. I'll just click on WhatsApp here. That all you have to do is click the install button. And it will download everything it needs. It will install it. And if you decide you don't want it, you come back into the repository here, and there will be an icon. These icons will change. One will say launch, the other will say uninstall. You click uninstall and it's done. There's no system rebooting, nothing like that needs to happen. It's all very, very, very straightforward. And it's all very, very well cataloged and organized as well to make it very simple for you to find the things that you need. If you don't find something that you need, you can go and search it on the internet. And they will, the companies that produce the things for Linux, they're not in the repositories, and sometimes that's just because they're new. It does take a while to get into the repositories. They give you exact instructions on how to install them. They're very simple instructions. It basically gets down to a copy and paste, but you're going to have to go into the terminal to do that. And I will cover that in the first of the tutorials on using the terminal as to how to install software. But you can see here I have using LibreOffice. Okay. This is a text editor. My text editor is, I use two different text editors depending on what I'm doing. The graphical text editor is called gedit, and I'll pop it up here for you so you can see it. And I use a dark background for it because I prefer dark backgrounds, and it's all very, very straightforward. Right? These are the links here that are going to go at the bottom of this video when it goes up on YouTube. Right? All nice and straightforward. The other editor that I use is called VI or Vim, which is one that I use it's a command line editor. I prefer it over anything else because it's just an absolutely wonderful, wonderful editor. Right? That's all I can say about it. Now, software updates, you don't go like in Windows, you go to shut down your computer and it goes, oh, you have an update. And you either, well, you can't shut down. You can shut down, but it's going to update anyway. Right? So you're not being able to close off your system the way you want to close your system off because you've got Windows deciding it's time for you to update. That will never happen on Linux Mint. This is the Software Update Center, which is always in the taskbar at the bottom, and it's got a check mark right now because there's nothing to update. And this will take a moment to come to life here. And you saw how fast the text editor loaded. These certain system programs are a little bit slower, but that's because they're deep programs. There's a lot involved with them because they have to search repositories and things as they're coming up. I may not have even actually clicked on it well enough to come up at this point in time. Here we go. Yeah, I didn't click it well enough. And here it's saying there's nothing to install. Right? I can refresh this, and it will then go out and it will search all of the repositories against all of the programs I have installed, and it will find any new updates and give me the information on them so that I can update the system and be done with that. Right? And I don't have to do this. This does not affect anything. I decide when I'm going to do this, not Linux. It checks. I've got this thing set to check every 2 hours, but I think by default it checks every 4 hours or something. I'm very big on keeping everything as up to date as is humanly possible. Now this thing right now, you're getting the spinny poo there because it is going out and it is going through thousands and thousands and thousands of updates to see what is needed, if anything is needed. And on the far side there, you can see my CPU usage right now is very, very high as it's doing this. It's even actually hitting 100% at different times. And there's nothing there. Okay. Now, this will also update the kernel. And the kernel updates are the only time the system will be required to restart. And it will tell you, please restart your computer as soon as possible. A kernel update, that is the actual booting system, and the startup system for Linux is the kernel. That is the piece of software that communicates directly with the hardware, and it is mission critical. So you always want to make sure that it's updated. Now on my web servers, the kernel is updated automatically, and it does not require a reboot, but it's called a live update. You can get live updates done on your desktop, but why bother? Okay? It just isn't something that's necessary, and your computer would need to be on all the time anyway. So you're turning your computer off most of the time at night anyway, so why bother with a live update? Whereas a web server is going to be up all the time. Right? Down at the bottom here, of course, you've got the usual taskbar, and these are programs that are running that I have determined that I want in here. Right? A lot of things I don't want in here because they're running. These are things that I interact with on a continuous basis, so I actually want them there. And I have a second taskbar I've installed up here, which gives me weather and also gives me current Bitcoin prices, which just suck right now. Now I can have this taskbar on either side. I can have this one here, over here. I can do whatever I want with it. Now finally, before we finish off this video, there's one really cool feature in Linux Mint that Windows is going to steal if they haven't already stolen it. I know they were talking about stealing it, and that is workstations. When I go into this corner, this is what is referred to for me. You can turn this feature off too. This is what's called a hot corner. Right, now I can make any corner a hot corner. I made the top left corner a hot corner, and you'll see, as long as I don't move it, you'll see I come up with 4 different screens. Right? These screens are workstations. So as an example, I can take this program here and I can drag it over into the second workstation. And then I can go between the two workstations. This one, now I've got those programs minimized. This one, that one's also minimized. But you can see how handy that would be. Help you keep your work very well organized as you're going through it. I also have them set to a control key. So control 2 is the second, control 3, control 4, back to control 1. So because I hate the mouse. I much prefer using the keyboard than the mouse. And Linux does allow me to create hotkeys for almost anything that I want to do. It's just wonderful and saves time. Anyways, guys, that's going to be it for the first of these tutorial videos. Watch for the one coming tomorrow on the command line, and we will see you next time. Make sure you get that VPN going, and if you got questions about dumping Windows, leave them in the comments. Happy to help you out. Have a great day. Ciao.